our next speaker, who's a freelance product designer, has experience in the field of financial technology. Please clap your hands for Adam Tillner-Smith.
Hello. Okay. It's going to be up there somewhere. Hello. So my name is Adam, and I'm a freelance product designer. My background predominantly has had me designing financial applications for small businesses. Now, I want you to be aware of some of the people around you. Is one of them a friend, a stranger, or a work colleague? And take a moment to think, what would it take for you to say, let them to borrow a book for the day? How about if you have a pet, lend them, say, your dog for the day? What about giving them a large sum of money? Now, I found it really fascinating to understand the dynamics surrounding trust and trying to answer this big question of how does trust develop within a fintech product? And this isn't just thinking about an individual's relationship with an application, but also what is that shared relationship? So if you're a business owner, what is that team dynamic when you've got multiple people using an application, and there's lots of different dynamics surrounding trust within that space. And by better understanding trust, it can help us to both get a better understanding of, it can help us to engage and retain our customers. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever sent an international payment before. It can be a little bit of a scary experience when you do it for the first time. You go in, you type in the amount you want to send and who it goes to, and then off it goes. But depending on the financial provider, it can take sometimes hours or even days. And it leaves you with this big feeling, where's my money? Is it going to get to the person on time? Is it going to get to the person? Or is it just lost in the ether? And it's really important to have an understanding of when these slightly scary moments appear for customers, and they are it's a risky thing for someone to be putting in, maybe a high amount of money and trying to send it abroad. Because we all know that trust is not built overnight, and it can certainly be both broken and developed. Now, my background has had me designing for small business owners, and I found that there's a really interesting insight from talking to a lot of them, and that is that price of service is not the main competitive advantage for them. So, what does this mean? This means that whilst they might have found out about a financial provider because they have, say, good, low fees for maybe sending money abroad, it's not going to be the main thing that keeps them there over a long period of time. Instead, there needs to be this very core foundation of trust and a real belief in the service provider. And then following that would be convenience, where, are they able to save time on things such as business administration? And then finally, price is really the icing on the cake. It's not going to be price is not the main thing that keeps them there over this longer period of time. They're going to be happy to spend a little bit more in terms of financial fees if they know that the service is really reliable and the amounts they're sending are arriving on time and to the right people. So this is my main kind of point I'm trying to get across from today's talk, is all about making designing for trust a top priority. And being able to evaluate some of the customer journeys through this particular lens of trust. And it's really vital as designers that we have some of these discussions to dive in a little bit deeper about, do our customers really trust us? So what can we do to better design for trust? What are some of the actions we can put in place that are really practical and we can use within our organizations? I've got 3 points here that I want to, and actions that you can kind of take home to apply into your own organizations. The first one is to understand, reliability. So, do your customers see your product or service as reliable? Have you asked those questions to your customers when you're doing your user research? Because reliability is all about getting the job done accurately every single time. And if your service is seen as reliable, it's going to give people a lot more confidence. And within the financial world, when they have more confidence, they're going to hold more money in their account. So they're not going to be bringing in their money to complete a certain action with it. They want to use that provider for a long period of time because they have a lot of faith in the reliability. But when things are unreliable, this can have an absolutely massive detrimental ripple effect. And customers will not be adopting your new exciting features. So regardless of all these exciting concepts we come up with as designers, customers really aren't going to be adopting them if they just don't have that cornerstone in reliability and trust. So designers, we need to be understanding this and understanding perspectives on reliability in order to help teams better prioritize their work. Now, I've got a story here, which is a use case where I've heard from a customer from a financial provider I used to work at. Her name's Megan, and she is a small business owner, and she designs and helps create and sell toys, children's toys. And she's got her brand new product. She's really excited to bring this to market. She's been working on it for months. It's a really, really important moment for her to actually start selling these. And then within her ecosystem, she has the designer that she worked very closely with to actually help, bring her vision to life. She's then got the supplier who's based in India who actually helps develop and build that product. Then she has the distributor based in the UK, for instance. And then finally, she has the end customer. This could be a family member who's buying the toy for their child. Now, the first thing that she needs to do is she needs to pay her supplier to ship the products. The products have already been created and they're all ready to be sent over. She just needs to make that final payment. So she goes into her financial provider and puts in the amount she needs to send, who it's going to, and then she expects it to go off to the supplier. However, her payment has suddenly been suspended. There's no kind of messaging on the interface to say why this problem has arisen. And she's quite confused at this point. But within the financial world, because of how companies are regulated, they need to be doing the right checks on certain documents to make sure certain money's been kind of laundered through certain providers. And this has to happen as part of financial regulations. But in this instance, she's not really told anything, and she has to reach out to customer support to try and say, hey, what's gone wrong here? But that could maybe take quite some time to actually fully resolve. So, because of this, Megan is not able to provide an official confirmation of that payment to the supplier, which leaves the supplier thinking, can your business be trusted? They've been having lots of discussions over a long period of time. It should be easy for Megan to be able to send this payment over. Why is she suddenly being really hesitant? And because of this, the shipment was delayed by a week, and this incurred additional shipping fees that Megan has to fork out and pay. And because of this, Megan then has to say to everyone, we need to delay the launch. I don't have the products. They're stuck in India. And this begins this ripple effect that is really, really kind of detrimental to not only her relationships, but also the financial provider. Because the distributor, who was really keen to get hold of those products and sell them, was relying on those profits to pay their staff bonuses. And then you've got the end customer who has pre-ordered the toy. They're really excited to give it to their child. And they're starting to think, hey, is this, was this a scam? I don't seem to be getting the product that I've ordered. And then finally, the designer, right at the beginning, is, a final payment still needs to be made. And Megan was relying on certain profits from selling some of the games to help fund the designer right at the beginning. And this is all about how we need to be aware of how customers live within an ecosystem. And for businesses, they handle money that is not their own. And this leaves Megan just with this big question of, should I actually be keeping my money with this financial provider? Maybe she's had like a really good relationship so far and it's gone really well, but this one instance has completely damaged her kind of thoughts on how reliable the service is, and it's had this massive kind of dangerous ripple effect with the people that she works and her close stakeholders. Which is why designers have a real responsibility to educate the organization when you hear of stories like this. I've been involved, when a researcher came and talked through a similar situation to this, it lives this real kind of, like people can instantly empathize and understand with that end customer, and they realize where some of the problems surrounding reliability exist within their product, but also the impact it can have. So it's all about fixing the fundamentals before we go ahead and ship our new exciting concepts that, as designers, we're really keen to see the light of day. But what can we do when things go wrong? So, we should be designing for the unhappy paths and trying to mitigate when, certain people can't complete the jobs that they really want to. The main thing is to communicate. Communication is such an incredible tool to help educate people on, where they stand in the experience. If you were to, order something off Amazon, you want to know, is everything going all right? Am I going to receive my parcel on time? Is there a problem? Is there a delay? And if there is a problem, why is there a problem? What's happened? Is it going to be resolved? And this is a key part of usability heuristics of understanding the visibility of system statuses. And we need to be thinking about, where are we educating our customers when things go wrong? Are we using push notifications? Are we using email? Is there, are we presenting something within the application itself? Then, what is the issue that's actually happened? We need to make that really clear and use terms that they understand. And then finally, why? Is there something we can add to explain why this has happened? And then if there are certain actions that can help put people's mind at ease to let them know that we're on it, we're trying to work on this, or some education, educational parts we can use, we need to be starting to think about how we're mitigating when things do go wrong. So my second action in helping to better design for trust is design to educate. And this is about thinking about those high-risk moments, such as sending money for the first time. It can be really nerve-wracking, and there's a lot of risk when dealing with large sums of money. And if we can locate them, we can then find these opportunities to create trust using things like content, imagery, to try and put their mind at ease and educate them. So here's an example where businesses need to manage their team members. This doesn't just happen within the financial world. It definitely exists within the e-commerce space, where you need to be inviting, let's say I'm a business owner, I need to be inviting my team members on to use this application. And you have certain different relationships with each of them. There's certain levels of trust you have with some. One might be a business partner that you've worked with a long period of time. The other might be a brand new employee that you don't really know a huge amount about it. And you need to design some really strong team management kind of features to help businesses scale with safety and security. Now, one thing that might exist within this is the ability to manage permissions. You should be able to toggle on and off things, such as should they have the ability to order a card, or should they be able to view my balance? Do I really want to be sharing that information with them? But if there is a misalignment with what customers think they are triggering versus what actually happens, that's going to really quickly damage the trust in the application. And not only that, it can have a massive detrimental effect if one of the team members was to do something malicious, which is why we need to be providing some real confidence to the business owner to help educate them on what actually happens. Yeah, as I was saying, it's all to do with the confidence that you can make a business owner feel when they're triggering something like this. And I'm sure many of you, when you're going through design problems, you're really trying to think about what are the customer needs that we're designing for. But in use cases like this, I found it really useful to actually be thinking instead about thinking about what does a customer need, reframing that into how can we better educate our customer. But we definitely know that more information does not equal more trust. You don't want to be bombarding customers with incredibly overwhelming amounts of information, which is why we need to be creating tiers of information, where you've got the first tier, which is the really crucial information. This could be things, your titles, your description. You're meeting the user in the experience to let them know the really critical information they need to know. The second tier, which is all about accessible reassurance. And there are things like tooltips where they can, they don't fully understand something, so they can hover over it, get a bit more depth. And then finally, diving deep, thinking about help and support articles. Are they able to go to this article and it comes up with lots of frequently asked questions that allow people to get a bit more education and think about some of those use cases that they weren't fully aware of and are now educated, a lot more about it, and that gives them a lot more confidence in the application. But, customers can be forgiving with poor user experience. If a customer sees that a button is a slightly wrong shade of blue, or a title is maybe a little bit bigger than they'd usually expect, they might potentially forgive that if they're able to complete the job that they were trying to complete. However, when you mix those poor quality moments with the poor quality with high risk moments, that can quickly change. So, relating to this is we need to be thinking about how might we better educate our customers. Because, when you're a customer coming into a space that you don't fully understand for the first time, such as the financial space, or it could be something within healthcare, there's a lot of anxiety that can be created just because there's so many new terms and jargon that people aren't fully aware of. So we need to be thinking about how we're educating people through that process that can be a little bit nerve-wracking. Now, this is an example that I ran into a couple of weeks ago when I was booking a train ticket in the UK. So within the UK, you have kind of peak times and off-peak times. And I've definitely been a bit uncertain when I've bought a train ticket in the past, where I'm like, okay, I bought it for this certain time, but actually I'd like to travel a little bit later in the day. Am I able to use this ticket later on? And it's been a real bit of I've been very unsure in those moments. But very clearly here, there's a bit of content when you're going to pay for the ticket that says, hey, the ticket you've bought, you can actually use at any train throughout the day. It's a very small bit of content, but it does a lot to give me much better confidence in when I'm out and about traveling. And these can definitely change depending on what tickets you buy. It's definitely not one rule for all of them. And you don't want to get caught out by the ticket inspector. In other use cases, individuals might be quite unsure about how secure an application is in terms of their storing payment information. When you're putting in your details for the first time to somewhere you've never used before, you might be thinking, oh, is this actually safe and secure? Providing it is, you should be trying to add in small bits of content to help put people's mind at ease. And the third action you can use to better think about how to design for trust is to think small. And this is all about how small details really do matter. Because whilst they might be small in size, they can have an absolutely massive impact on your experience if they're scattered throughout. And when a customer, is constantly running into these small niggles, it's gonna, they are really gonna notice these things, and it's gonna make them question, things to do with reliability and the overall trust in the experience. And it's not just thinking about the end customer's experience. We also need to be thinking about the environment we create for our teams. So if we picture, this beautiful dilapidated house with its broken windows and, there's broken furniture scattered all over the inside, is this going to be the right environment for someone to come in and start to renovate and create something really beautiful within this space? We should think about this and apply it to our teams. When teams can already see that there are a number of different problems that exist in the product, is that the best environment for them to be making their best work? They might think, there are a few problems here and there. No one's going to notice if, something is, the wrong shade of color. And they might put out something that's a little bit subpar. Which is why we need to be setting much better expectations for design quality, really hitting home to our teams to kind of explain to them and get them on board with why quality is so important. Now, a tool to help with this that I found to be really useful are things called quality days. And this is where you can designate maybe 1, maybe 2 days, and you're really getting multiple teams, or depending on how big you are, getting the entire organization involved in this initiative. And you come together and you break out into teams, and this allows teams to go beyond their own remit. Say you've got someone working on onboarding, and it does a lot to bring them over into a brand new area. They maybe have a lot fewer touch points with to start to think about and find some of those quality issues. I've definitely been in those instances where I've been very used to working in my own space, and you get used to how the product works, and you think, I'm used to this. And you need those fresh eyes to come into your space to try and help you understand how things can be improved. So what you do on a quality day is you could start off, getting into FigJam and dissecting certain parts of the product, mapping out those flows, running a workshop, and then everyone can get together and trying to identify where certain parts of the product maybe there's certain product problems that could exist with them, and what opportunities are there to improve it. And then within this time frame, trying to prioritize those and fix them. And it's absolutely amazing to see how much you can actually accomplish when you've got a very fixed time scale and multiple teams kind of working together on trying to fix some of these problems. Because you can come together at the end of those 2 days, and you can come through with like, hey, here are the 8 things that we've actually got live in production that we've managed to fix in this very short space of time. The other thing you can kick off within a quality day is having a quality backlog, where once you've got multiple teams kind of bought in and their eyes have been open to the fact there are existing issues with the product and there are things that we can improve from a quality perspective, having a quality backlog allows individuals to kind of find and track issues. You could be using something like Jira, where you can come in, track your issue, maybe assign maybe the team that it's kind of within their remit. But the important thing to call out is you don't want this, which it's very easy to happen. I'm sure you've been in situations like this, where you've got all these problems and you just chuck them into this giant hole, and they're never dealt with, and no one picks them up. Which is why, if you are going to bring an initiative like this, communication is really essential to help people get really bought into this. And what I mean by this is when someone is logging an issue, they take a screenshot, they assign it to the ticket, they should really be informed on what happens to the problem that they've flagged. Has it been fixed, or is it still, sitting there in this bucket and no one's picked it up? And this needs to happen to ensure that people are actually bought in within this initiative. Otherwise, things aren't going to change. And then a useful part of this to kind of is if you can bring in another quality day and you can reflect on all the things that have happened within your quality backlog, then this just tries to continue this initiative. But we've all been in instances where people have tried to get new initiatives going in the company and they die instantly after a couple of weeks, a month. It's why if you are going to do this, you need to be setting in these checkpoints, these review moments where you're reflecting, is this actually working? Do we need to be working differently within our teams? And only then will you be able to actually start to make some real progress and see some progress with quality inside your products. So the three things that we've covered to help better design for trust. The first, I talked about understanding reliability. It's about talking to customers and really trying to understand what their thoughts are on reliability. And only by doing this, you can then better understand and inform the teams to help work to be prioritized. It's about fixing the fundamentals of what customers are trying to do, those core jobs, before going and releasing those fancy new concepts that we've been dying to release as designers. Second part, I spoke about designing to educate, how education can be used as a really useful tool to help bring more confidence to individuals in those moments, those high-risk moments where they're a little bit unsure about how things work, and that can be a really useful tool. And then finally, I spoke about to think small. It's all about how the small details really do matter, being able to use things like quality days to kick off and educate people within the teams surrounding why quality is so important, and then those quality backlogs to try and continue this initiative and to get people within the company invested in quality. And overall, hopefully I've tried to get you to think a little bit more about trust, and and hopefully it's getting you to think about making design a top priority. And by doing this, it can help to both improve engagement and retention in your customers. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We have some time for Q&A, for 3-4 questions, so if you're up for it. The first one is there quantitative data on how the unreliable ripple effect influences user behavior? First one.
Yeah. It's going to be a hard one to track. I think the main one, if you're looking at it from a quantitative perspective, is are people able to get through that end-to-end kind of user experience? So I worked within the onboarding space for some time. So a metric that we track is how many people have actually been able to kick off the flow, go through a verification experience, and then get out to the end of it. So that would probably be one way to track it. But until if you're able to kind of outreach those customers who have dropped off, you'll start to really get into their mindset of where problems existed. Is something to do with trust actually being one of the problems that have related to it?
Cool. And you answered another question, so 2 in 1. How can neobanks or financial providers become as trusted as old school banks? How can they build trust using design?
Is it up? No.
Yeah.
Okay. How can we become as trusted as old school banks? Really big question, because with the trust and the kind of institutional banks is like quite an interesting area, because if something was to go wrong within an institutional bank, you're going to already have a lot more trust that relates to that bank because of its legacy and it's been around for some time. But these neobanks, because you have a bit more uncertainty surrounding them, when when issues to do with trust do crop up, you're going to give them a lot less leeway if things do go wrong. So I think, yeah, for these neobanks, they're going to have to do a lot more work than their financial institutions. The experience has got to be a lot stronger, and really think more about trust than the existing financial providers, because they are trying to change how people are thinking about the financial industry.
Perfect. The next question. How can you establish or maintain trust when providing what the client really needs is not possible from a legal perspective?
How can you maintain trust? How can you maintain trust when providing what customer?
Yeah, I guess we would need an example
from
here,
a legal
right?
perspective. Yes. Okay.
If anyone wants to elaborate on this question,
yes.
Yeah,
happy.
Just ask.
Yeah, if you call out the example if you're thinking about it. Otherwise, we can talk about it afterwards. Yeah. So is your point to do with you're trying to create something, but the financial regulator or something, or legally they won't let you explain that? Okay. Okay. So it's is this to do with like tipping off customers? So when people are going through, you can't, like with an onboarding experience, you can't tip off to say, if you pick this industry, then you're going to move much quicker through the onboarding experience compared to if you pick something that's like a higher risk category. That can be, there's definitely a balance with trying to like educate people about things that can happen versus, there's definitely parts to do with like tipping off customers that you're not allowed to do from like a financial regulatory perspective. Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification, by the way.
Yeah.
And let's go for another one. You previously mentioned that you were working on onboarding specifically.
Yeah.
But can you mention any other parts that you worked on or your colleagues where increasing trust was a main goal, and how did you measure it in the application?
So yeah, I worked on onboarding for quite some time. I also worked on a team management system before with the things such as managing permissions. Measuring it is, it definitely can be a little bit difficult. When we built the team management tools, I think right at the beginning, we kind of measure, it was mostly from like a qualitative perspective. Right at the beginning, you're giving someone a prototype and you say, hey, trigger this permission, what do you think it does? And they list off all the things that they think it did, and there's lots of other things that they had no idea about. And then you go back, with a new prototype a couple of weeks later, showing them all of these kind of other layers of information that you've added in, and they're like, oh, actually, I'm really glad I read this before I actually triggered this, because I don't want that person to have access to it. So I think I've definitely taken more of a qualitative approach in the past.
Cool. And the last question for now, but please make sure to catch Adam during the day and he will answer your questions. So it's again about onboarding. Could you share your experience about onboarding and how detailed it should be? How do I know when to stop explaining details?
Yes. So there's lots of information you could let people know about during onboarding, which is why I tried to talk about adding in these tiers of information. You really need to think through like what does a customer need to know right at the beginning with the title and the description, and then what other things are actually kind of lower priority. You can't include everything within an experience. It's mostly going to come from like thinking about the risks involved with them not knowing that information. And once you understand those risks and you go through and you do some user testing, you can get a better understanding of like the hierarchy of importance for certain things.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing all of these insights. Here's a small gift from the organizers. It's a bag of tea.
Amazing.
And also
the picture of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anime me. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing
Cheers.
this.